Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. We are here today with George Bardissi, founder and CEO of bvoip. How are you, George?
Doing great, Scott. You know, it's we got lucked in some really good weather here in the Northeast. I'm based out here in suburban Philadelphia for anyone that doesn't know. But if you follow me on social media, I'm a pretty heavy Eagles fan.
Okay.
Don't hold that against me. But we've run into pretty unusually warm weather, like 70s, and then like now I'm gonna get snow tomorrow. So all fun and games, man.
Oh, are you serious? You're getting snow tomorrow? Are they
Yeah,
really calling for that?
like 3 to 5 inches. I was like, really? I was like, I literally was out in shorts, and like now I'm going into the snow. So yeah,
Well,
crazy.
it's a cool, here in South Carolina, it's a cool, crisp 70 right on it. And I think it's supposed to get down to maybe 50s over the next couple days, but I don't know. It's been unseasonably warm and I've really enjoyed it.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure everybody in your state and South have very much enjoyed it. That a lot of people are moving that direction. If you haven't been following that, all the U-Haul traffic, I guess. But yeah, it's been an interesting time. Well, hopefully they can still do that. As things are happening in the world, then it's going to cost a little bit more to travel soon. Probably now moving forward, right?
Yeah, I think we're in for it for a little while there as far as those gas prices, I assume you're talking about. So
Yeah, and once they start getting the $5 to $7 a gallon, that might staycations happen.
absolutely. So
Yeah,
yeah, tough situation there all around in Ukraine. I hate it. We're definitely keeping up with it, and they are in our thoughts and prayers for sure. So
yeah, absolutely. For what it's worth, one of our data center vendors, I was looking at the map of available facilities we
sure,
can be in, and they sure enough they have a data center in Kyiv, and it's still online and running, and I was like,
that's awesome.
I don't know
That
for how long, but it's still up and running. I was like, it's accessible and the internet's good and the power's up. So
that's great. You can't ask for more than that. So
not at all,
that's
not at all.
wonderful.
In the middle of it. So
So tell us a little bit about bvoip. How
yeah,
long? When did you start it?
yeah, it's a great question. So bvoip really came out of frustration that we had in an MSP I was running here in suburban Philadelphia ourselves.
Sure.
And frankly, we ran into the issue of, this, right? Every time you go into a managed services customer and they already have made an investment in something, and now that something is your problem, right? And I would say most MSPs, Scott, don't charge for vendor management like they should. Time, the whole MSP business is really time based, right? Like
Sure.
different than a lot of other industries, right? Like every time you call your lawyer, trust me, that clock started and they're ticking, and so unfortunately I think MSPs get stuck into this flat rate model, and then they kind of absorb a lot of things. And whether it's copiers, remember on-prem exchange servers and SBS servers and all this other mess that came in, copiers, right? It's a door access system, surveillance. Like if it had a blinking light somehow it became your problem, well, telecommunications and phones and internet obviously fall into that category. So part of the reason why we started bvoip was we felt that there wasn't a very MSP focused option out there. There was always some wrinkle that created a not perfect or not ideal scenario, right? Like we're all used to now, I call it the sandbox, the MSP sandbox, IT service provider sandbox. I mean, we're all used to programs that cater to us, but that's not always the case. And when it comes to telecom land and telephony and unified communications, it's really not that way, right? It's really, a makeshift program that's not specifically designed for IT and MSP. And then there's a little bit of like mostly direct companies that have a bolt-on channel program, which doesn't feel good. We've all gone down the, channel conflict lane. And that never feels good when your end customer starts to get marketed to by your vendor. And then
That's
all
right.
of a sudden, what happened to you, right? And like that's never a good feeling, and it's usually not a good outcome. And unfortunately, in telecom land, I mean, Scott, how many times? I know for me the answer is a lot, but how many times have you walked into a prospective customer, and somehow somebody convinced them to sign a 5, 6, 8 year deal, And like that's on, like technology changes so drastically in that time frame. Imagine to be locked into some sort of contract for that period. I mean, it's crazy.
And those long agreements, typically something like that, like you said, the technology changes. What a lot of the vendors, I assume, are doing is just, it's all fun and roses right in the beginning, and then 2 or 3 years later, you can't get anybody on the phone if you need support. It's just awful land.
Even fast forwarding to like modern day,
Hmm.
we keep on running into MSPs who worked with some of the more popular names out there, right? And like they sign deals to get higher functionality, right? More than just making the phone ring, because maybe they realized their businesses needed, more advances in chat or SMS or just call flow, call center, that type of stuff. And we hear from people all the time, all day, every day. Hey, we signed up with XYZ company, and you've all heard these names, and I don't need to bring them up, and we're 3 or 4 months in, we're supposed to be online, and our project managers changed 4 times. We never got online. We've been paying this bill the whole time, and like nothing's running. Or hey, they got us to a certain point, and then we couldn't get a hold of anyone, and we're kind of left hanging, and that's not good for you, and ultimately not good for your end customer. And like when it in unified communications land, specifically for MSPs, one of the challenges that pop up is the free phone gimmick, right?
Ah,
Like those phones that they give out as part of the free phone, if you sign a long-term agreement deal, they're like $50 phones, right? Like they've made their money back in the first 90 days. Or I don't know if you know this, all of the manufacturers, Scott, now, right? Like Poly, like Yealink, like Snome, and a bunch of
okay.
others, the manufacturers do a device as a service program where they're basically holding the money, the node on it, right?
Okay.
And you're just paying a monthly fee on those devices. So imagine, let's just give you a scenario. Let's make it really simple, a 10 phone opportunity, real small, real consumable.
Okay.
If you're paying $2 to $4 per device per month to the manufacturer, that could be through a program, whatever. You never paid for those phones out of pocket. You just keep on collecting that from your end customer, right? No differently than any other hardware as a service model. And that's how
Sure.
the free phone thing occurs, right? But like, let's
Okay.
say you did have the ability to front, money for equipment. If you look at the models that they're giving out as part of the deal, and by the way, nobody's happy with those models, right? Like
Gotcha.
everybody who's still using the desk phones out there, like you look at it and they're like, hey, it has less buttons that I'm familiar with. I don't have everything I used to see. I've
Subpar
seen so
equipment.
many, I've seen so many people like melt down because they have extra steps they got to do to just do the same thing, right? And so like I always tell people, don't get stuck on the whole free phone gimmick. It's not free. This it's just a pricing mechanism, right? It's no different than you going to buy a Honda, Toyota, and instead of going to your own bank, they have Honda financing, Toyota financing. It's the same thing.
Sure.
So unfortunately, these are all, it's all like, Scott, you ever shop at Kohl's?
Every once in a while, not often, but
Okay.
I've been in there.
You know how, it's like, oh, there's all these, coupons and discounts and this, that, and the other. And by the
Yeah.
time you're all done, the shirt's $25, and like that's the same price everywhere else, right?
Sure.
It's the same thing. It's all just a pricing gimmick to get into the door and have a conversation.
Makes a lot of sense. So, George, I also run an MSP, and as you know, I'm a bvoip customer. So, we have been very, very happy with the service. But, one thing that I really kind of want to talk to you about today is how can I start selling Voip to my customers? Because I won't lie and tell you, we have always been scared of VoIP. I've never been a phone person. I run my MSP off of data. Like you need me to come in and install a Sonic wall and put a VLAN in, no problem. I can talk that language all day long. But
I
up
hope
until
so. I
recently,
hope you can do that.
yeah. Well, up until recently, though, I'm kind of ashamed to say, but I didn't even know what I've heard it, but I didn't even know that POTS meant plain old telephone system. I had to Google that. What is that? What do they keep talking about POTS line? So, but now I understand. So, I think that because my lack of voice knowledge, I was always kind of a data guy. I think that I've always veered away from getting into anything voice related. If my client had a need, I'd refer them.
Yeah, and listen, Scott, that's not uncommon, unfortunately, right?
Sure.
Like if you ever looked at any survey from the MSP sandbox of who's using who, nobody had double digit, kind of allocation in the pie, right? Even the big guys, nobody has it. And, and unfortunately, part of the reason is that there's so many options to the end customer. And like MSPs largely have viewed this as, there's not really money there for me. But coming back to originally, like the reason why we created bvoip from our own pain, is, hey, listen, you're not, the idea that your end customer, Scott's going to call the 800 number for somebody else when they have a problem is bogus. They're going to call you because your marketing pitch the whole time has been, if there's a problem, call us first and we'll help you, right? And so the second you start spending time on that, the little bit of money that all these other people are giving you, 20%, whatever, it doesn't even cover that time, right? And so that's where everyone's been, well, is there any money here for me? So, our opinion is that if you are going to spend the time anyway, you might as well be able to control the price point. And Scott, as much as people think that the price keeps on going down, right? The price per user, per endpoint, I mean, that's traditionally how it's sold. It's actually the reverse, right? Like if I did an exercise with you right now, and I might just do this, and I'm not knocking them, I'm just using these guys. Like if I go to the top, I would say Ring Central is probably the big kahuna on the street, right? Do you disagree?
That's who we were with before we came to bvoip.
I didn't pick you out of the puzzle. I'm just saying they're when you hear about this, right? You largely think, okay, well, who do I hear about? They're the big guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's just, for giggles, right? I'm going to share my screen and let's just go through this exercise. So this is Ring Central's current pricing page today. I just went to it right now.
Okay.
And notice that this $19.99 per user, this is the entry level, right?
Okay.
That's if you pay for the whole year up front, Scott. When was the last time you heard of your customer paying for their phone bill for the whole year?
They don't. It's typically a monthly phone bill.
Who does that? Who's going to pay for that up front? Now, here's the real price.
Another $10.
Is the price going up or down?
It's going up.
Okay. And that's the case across all the major vendors. And that's also the case with your cable companies and your local providers. This price point is going up unless, again, it's a SaaS style approach, right? If you're willing to pay your whole bill up front, we'll give you a lower price, which I'm going to tell you, if you're within 1 to 20 users, probably not going to do that.
Sure.
Okay. Let's just for giggles go up the chart, right? Once you get to 21 to 25 users in their chart, Scott, the low feature set guy, it's gone. Right? So if you're going to pay annually, your per user price per month is $27.99.
Wow.
Nobody's paying annually, Scott. Let's see what the monthly price is.
Another $10.
There's a lot of room on the table that MSPs are leaving on the bone because your costs should be dramatically less than this, and you should be able to make more than 20%. You should be able to make a multiple markup. That's how we view the world here in bvoip land, right? So we offer a per user per month model, right? And that really helps with those smaller customers. And you can be able to make more than 20%. That's minimum, right? What all the other guys are giving. We don't even think that's a real fair price. But we also have a channelized based model, Scott, where when you go to your customer that, think about an old school phone system where, you may only have 4, 5, 8, 10 lines, but there could be 50, 80, 100 extensions, 30 extensions. You can oversubscribe like we've been seeing for decades, right? Not everyone's going to be on the phone at the same time. I know that's how people are used to now buying this, but that's not, unless you're a very busy, you have like a help desk, for example, or a call center, customer service group, where you're just a very small customer, you're probably not going to have one-to-one, right? One user to one phone line all the time. Like it's just not not the reality. So that's where oversubscription can occur, and that's where you can make a lot more markup potential, right? And so there we give you both models. Now, just for giggles, right? And we don't even put pricing on our page, by the way. We show you features, we show you plans, but we're a channel only company, Scott. We don't sell direct. So if a plumber, a doctor, a lawyer, a municipality, a manufacturing calls us, they got to go through a partner, right? And so
Sure.
you don't ever see pricing at the bottom of any of these, which is to protect our partners, right? So that they don't get squeezed, right? We want them to set their pricing, okay?
You don't want
But
your end users going to the site and seeing your price, saying, "Oh, well,
correct.
why is Scott charging another $20 a month here?"
The channel conflict, right? How many times I've heard the story 1,000 times. You sign up as a partner. I hate to pick on Ring Central, the big guy. You sign up as a partner of Ring Central. Your price that you can quote as a partner of Ring Central is more than the guy calling into Ring Central getting a quote directly.
Wow.
That's not fun. That's not fair. So I always tell our partners, this is our base tier. We call it View. And our base tier includes things like call recording, agent supervisor, contact center, transcription, SMS, right? We also give you the ability to do advanced call queuing, whisper monitor barge, Teams voice integration, and so on. When you start to compare that against, the basic plans here in Ring Central land, that base tier in bvoip land gives you this level. Our base tier gives you that level of functionality. Okay?
Is there mid-grade level?
Correct. So my point to you is, even if you pay annually, I still don't know who's going to do that. Well, let's say that you did. Their best value plan, right? $34.99 per. That's where we start, and there's a lot of room between what we're going to give you and what the street's charging, right? And I think that there's a major shift, Scott, in the room, that there is money now to be made as a service provider, as an IT service provider, managed service provider. And here's the thing, Scott, you're already controlling that sonic wall. You're already controlling their networking. You're making sure they're not running on that 4-port Netgear thing on the drop ceiling that nobody can find.
Sure.
And you want to make sure that your stuff's working well. These are the foundation points for VoIP to work anyway, right? And so if you're already doing half of the work, you can lay over voice on top of your existing investment, if you would, in that customer's system. And we get it now, right? A lot of people are working remotely, and we know that trend's going to continue, especially with $7 a gallon, if that ever becomes the actual price. We know that people are going to be working hybrid, right? That's fine, and we're totally ready for that. At the end of the day, you and I know that if your base networking isn't good and it's not right, it doesn't matter who you're using, you're probably going to have a bad experience.
That's right. Up until you just said that, George, I have not really thought about, I know that COVID set the stage for work from home, but if you've got employees that have a large commute or any type of commute where they've got to drive and they've got to fill up their tanks to get to work, you're, as an employer, you're gonna need to give them more money to help cover the gas in their vehicle just to get to work.
Or they're just not going to do it.
Right, or they're just not going to do it. So it seems like it further solidifies what we already have seen from COVID. You've got this work from home environment now. It's just going to solidify that. So these new telephone systems, and I'm new to all this, so I'm fascinated with the cloud-based PBX. You don't have an on-prem PBX server anymore. So nor do you
want to worry about a box in a closet, on a wall,
that's right,
on your desk, because listen, things break. And then you're forced to do the fire drill, right? Where you're having to stop what you're doing and going to handle stuff. And we know cloud's been progressive. I want to just rewind a little bit. bvoip started to help the MSP, right? We're channel only. So we spent a lot of our R&D money, our development time, building out integration to the apps that MSPs are already invested in to run their businesses, right? So I just want to share, we actually have a pretty healthy, integration investment into things like Datto and ConnectWise and BrightGauge and Freshdesk. We just added Halo, HubSpot, Hoodoo, Infusionsoft, IT Glue, LionGuard, so on and so on and so on, right? We just have all of this integration. Synchro, right? I know that you're a big Synchro guy. I mean, we've made that investment so that even you can do more than just make the phone ring, right? We want you to be able to do things like, let me just show you, right? Let's say if a call comes in and that phone number is not in your CRM, right? Like for example, we use HubSpot here at bvoip for sales and marketing. We use ConnectWise for our ticketing system. Don't hold it against us. So if a number is not in any of our systems, we have the ability to search our multiple systems if you have them and say, hey, this is really George's number. I now want to save that as his number, whether it be in here in HubSpot or here in ConnectWise, right? So that the next time, they call, I have their information on the screen. And like, let's say they're not in there. I can go ahead and create a new contact. I can go search for the company, right? And I could say, hey, I'm going to create that contact in my systems and start to fill in the information so that gets pushed back into my tools, right? So that I don't have to go and do this multiple times. And then once I've decided that, this is actually somebody that I actually had in my system, in this case, let's say I dialed into a Zoom, like I'm doing now, and I just want to do like what we call a soft association, right? So that, at least they know that, right? This call was actually about George. Notice that all of my CRMs are stacked, right? And like, if I had active tickets, my communications history with this person, including anytime there was a call recording, a ticket, a note, you can see contact notes get stacked here as well, opportunities, right? Like I'm bringing all of this, like this, right?
So like this, let me stop you real quick. So at the top, it says OneStream Client. So this is a proprietary application for bvoip.
Yeah, we built this. It's our tech stack.
Okay, great. So I knew that, George, but I wanted to make sure that the viewers and the audience caught that. So this goes hand in hand, and these were the integrations for bvoip, and the client is called OneStream Client. Okay.
Right, and this is something that you could ultimately provide to your end customer too. Let's say they're investing in a Salesforce, a HubSpot, an Infusionsoft, a NetSuite. We have integrations to things that your end users are going to use too, and you could provide similar integration, automation, and workflow to them like we do. And now the conversation has changed from more of, hey, does the phone ring, to, hey, I can actually start to like connect to the systems that you use, just like you have your own systems to run your business.
Well, one of the things that I love about the OneStream client is the fact that you could take an incoming call from a customer, say at the help desk level. They've got you've got an active ticket, and you can attach that recording of the phone call into the ticket.
So let me just, for giggles, I don't have any active tickets open right now.
Okay.
So I'm just going to create a new ticket, right? And I'm going to just go ahead and add that into my ticketing system. Okay. So now if I just see this highlighted, ticket, if I'm already on a call, it's going to upload the ticket, the call recording to that ticket as an attachment. And now it's already there, right? And now there's an association. If I go to run a report, and I'll show you what that looks like, your call, your ticket, your contact, your company, and your recording are all tied together.
Sweet.
And if I
That's the way it should be.
If I wanted to go edit this ticket, seriously. If I wanted to go edit this ticket, let me just kind of, notice that there's no notes. I could literally change boards, types, subtypes, right? And I could literally start doing app mentions for other team members so they get a note, and I could do follow-ups so that, it puts it in my calendar and an activity for me in my PSA. And let's say I want to send a quick note to my customer as well. I can hit save, and now my fields update, my activity and time entry get created, my app mention gets sent to my colleague, my follow-up activity is going to be put in my activities list and calendar, my note goes to my customer, and my call recording gets uploaded all once I press save. And I didn't even get to the UI of my CRM yet.
That's beautiful. You've put a lot of time and effort in this. Your team has done a great job, George.
I mean, the goal here is to save time, right? We
Yep.
want people to be able to get to the work faster. And like nobody, like think about when you call into your credit card company, your, your Comcast and Time Warners and Frontiers and those guys, right? How
Sure.
long does it take to finally get to a person who then can identify you and then start helping you? Like, let's just get past that.
Yeah, I don't think they have a system this advanced, honestly. When you
Well,
call in, they can't give you any information, it seems.
well, when you have to say your account number 30 times every time you
Right.
get transferred, right? So like, let's say I now have this ticket and I want to transfer it to another tech, another account manager, another queue. I
Okay.
can do a blind or a warm transfer to a person or to another call queue so that when they get the call, my information shows up on their screen, my ticket shows up on their screen, and the last note that I typed in shows up on their screen.
So the end user doesn't have to explain what they just explained to the previous rep. That's great.
Yeah. And we can screen pop other tools that you think are important for your people. Like, let's say you're a tech. I can screen pop your documentation tool, like an IT Glue. I can screen pop your remote access tools, your RMMs, your, basically anything you want. And I can pull that information up so that when those calls come in, we pop to those accounts on your screen.
That's excellent.
So like this is just some of the meat and potato stuff, that makes OneStream, make sense. Some other things that we do in OneStream, and I'll just, pop over and show you some of the stuff, right? We have different levels, right? So, we talked about all the, you saw the plans earlier and we really didn't go through them, but in OneStream, we have a lot of reporting and a lot of visibility into who's doing what, why, where, when, right? So for example, I can see every single person, how many calls they made. Janine's on fire today, 144 calls. But like every time I click on, let me just, go make sure I'm on today. I am, right? So like I can see every single call. I can see all these are drill downable, right? So if I go into a specific person, right, I can see all of their calls, all of their call recordings, right? And then like if they missed a call, how many outbound calls? I had 0 missed queue calls today, but I also had direct calls that weren't answered right away. Maybe they were just people calling specific people to find out what's going on. If there's a ticket or a contact or a company attached, that data is now attached with their call recording and their call records. So like the goal here is that all of this data is available and you can begin to slice that data down to different groups of people, different pods. And then there's a bunch of reporting, right, that give you an idea of who's doing what. And, you can actually go back to your customers in like an account management style way and say, hey, you say that we don't, we're not answering your calls. Here's every call you called. Here's how you did, why you did, right? So I can actually go here and say, I could run a report and then literally I can schedule that report to be sent to somebody on a reoccurring schedule, or I could literally drop it to an Excel and effectively just send it to them and say, here's your call report, right? So there's a lot of data populating here and it's coming down. So I can actually do that for calls they call to a specific number on my system, or I can take all of their numbers and run a report. I call it like a reverse report so that I can say, here's every single number on your account in the PSA or CRM. Here's how many times your people called and we answered every single call.
Yeah, because how many times does the client call and say, well, you never answer our call, but yet we answer their call every single time. So
100%.
It's nice to have some solidified proof that you can hand them and say, here's a record of every time you called and here is the
and that's why the call recordings are
response.
also so important, right? Because there's like this, right? He said, she said. Like
Always.
nobody wants that mess. Like, let's just get down to the brass tacks and solve your problem.
Yep.
And like, we don't want to get into, like this back and forth with you and like nitpicking, right? So, there's a lot of functionality here. I didn't even touch the surface, but we can assign PIN numbers to people in the PSA. So when they call in, they have to identify themselves before they get routed somewhere. We can assign people the ability to, type in their ticket number and get routed back to the last person that touched that ticket or to the tech queue with a screen pop. We actually have a cool kind of pager duty style approach where we can create on-call style functionality like answering service style hierarchies, whereas messages are left in a voicemail box, we can create these notification tiers where you can be text message, the phone system can call you, you can get an email, you can do all of them. And then we keep on going up and down the list until somebody acknowledges that they've actually got, they say, yes, got it, right? You got to reply in the text or press 1 when you're called. So like the goal here is like, we're not, we're going to keep on harassing people until their batteries die or until somebody responds. And so that's great for like people who leave voicemails. We also have the ability to actually log people in there into or out of a call queue based on a schedule, right? So somebody, if you're like, my text just always forget to log in or out, right? And it messes up my phone system routing. I could go in here and actually, there we go, say, George should be always logged into the tech support queue at 9 o'clock, and he should always be signed out at 5 o'clock, right? And I can actually go in and automate that process, right? So that you're always in or out based on a schedule. And then the last one that we do in Signal, which is pretty interesting, is, hey, let's say you have, and we'll show you some of the options, right? But let's say you have a call queue and you're not answering your calls, right? You have multiple texts tied into your queue. And like, once you hit a threshold, right? How many calls is too many calls for Scott to just not be at his desk available to answer calls, right? Let's say that's 4 calls. Once Scott misses the 4th call in that call queue, we can log him out and we can send a notification to somebody else via SMS, phone call, email that Scott was logged out. You might want to make sure he's okay. So like that's all part of some of the functionality that we've built out for the MSP. And this could ultimately be used for your end customer as well.
And this could be, these people, these employees don't even have to be in the same building, in the same environment. They can be in technically different countries.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
all across the internet. Wow,
Exactly.
that is wonderful. So,
Yeah.
One thing as you're going through this, George, that I'm really just blown away with is the responsiveness of the app and everything. I mean, you're clicking and it's just going. There is zero hesitation.
No,
That is
absolutely.
very impressive.
And we continue to build out this functionality. I mean, I'm just going to go back, right? As a partner, right? You get access to your starting place, right? To manage your phone, kind of experience, right? And you can see I can sign in via Office 365 via Azure SSO, or I could log in via an MFA challenge, right? Because like security, right? You're a big security guy, Scott.
Yep.
You want to make sure all this stuff is tied up. As you come in here, now I'm in here, all of the accounts that I'm managing underneath of me are now, basically in my view, right? And then I can start to log into all of my downstream accounts and make adds, moves, and changes, right? Do I want to go in and add more users? Sure, no problem. Let me go ahead and add a user. Do I want to go in and do I want to go in and change an auto attendant? Sure, let me go in here and say option 6 now goes to this new queue, right? No problem. You want me to go in here and adjust users in a queue? No problem. Let me go in here. Let me go and add a new agent, right? This is all click and go, right? You don't have to learn a whole new, like if you can manage an Office 365 portal, you can do this, right?
Right.
So when I say, hey, lots of functionality in terms of how calls are distributed, it's not vanilla, right? You can keep it vanilla and that's fine. But our base tier includes a lot of what are viewed as advanced level features and a lot of these other systems that they charge, a premium for. And we want to give you a lot of this technology so that you can go back to your customer and get that upcharge, right?
There you go.
So
it's all standard. Their premiums are standard with you.
Correct. I mean, we can always go up from there, but our base tier, pretty much gives you a good starting position, right? So you get, the desktop apps, you get the mobile apps. And one of the things that we do, Scott, is we actually give you Microsoft Teams voice integration. We don't charge extra for that. Microsoft does, but we don't charge extra to turn this native dialing experience on, which Microsoft charge, like when you go into Teams voice and you add the calling plans, this is what you see. You get this, you get the Microsoft voicemail system and transcription service, right? We also give you a couple of apps that you can embed in your Teams experience, right? So we call this Uni Console. This brings users in like as you know, from the back end phone system, because not everybody needs to be in Teams voice in order to communicate.
Sure.
And we also give you an embedded version of OneStream, right? We talked about, you know, this is how we presented OneStream outside of Teams. You can actually have OneStream embedded in Teams, right? So I can actually, you can actually turn on single sign-on here as well. I'm just going to sign in, but we can actually embed OneStream right into your Teams environment, right? And then you can live within Microsoft.
Very nice. I'm glad you're showing this because I've heard a lot about the Teams integration and I have yet to see it. So this is great. What all can you?
Well, a couple of things that are worth mentioning, right?
Yeah.
So like today, right? If you were to go, you know, do the Teams voice thing,
Okay.
you know, and again, NCE changes things, right? Everybody, we've heard NCE, NCE.
Right.
The only difference with NCE now is that what used to cost $4 a user, which is the Microsoft dial-in bridge. Like when you send a Teams meeting out, it would put like a dial-in number and then they could pick their country and call in instead of using the app. That's now a $0 SKU that you can add once you're on NCE. Pre-NCE, you had to add a $4 SKU on, so that's now gone away. But you still have this under 300 employees, $20, right? Every user is $20, whether the user's the CEO or the user is the reception phone on, waiting for somebody to walk in and use it. And then over 300 users, it jumps to like $57 a user, which is just almost unaffordable. But I guess at that point, you have a lot more money to spend. So like real quick, from a Teams voice perspective, again, we don't charge anything extra, but like, this is what happens when you go and buy Teams voice from the marketplace or through your distribution company. Microsoft brings in their own carrier, which actually is bandwidth.com here in North America. And then you just get the native Teams kind of simplified phone experience, right? I call it a bolt-a-line, almost like a cell phone, right? You get some basic functionality in a voicemail box and the ability to make and receive calls. So this is what you get off the shelf Microsoft. Here is what happens when you use a third party to kind of say, hey, I don't want to use the Microsoft calling plans. I want to use a third party calling dial tone vendor and like kind of plug them into the back of Teams.
Sure.
So they use that something through what they call direct routing. And then this is what we and a lot of other peoples do. We call this a hybrid implementation where we bring a lot of the extra call routing, logic, auto attendance, hold music, call flow, integrations to the table that just aren't there in the Teams phone system today. And we pair it up with a Teams voice user so that you can use the Teams phones and apps and non-Teams phones and apps. It actually almost creates a quasi DR strategy so that if Microsoft does have a problem, and they do, your phone system's still running, right? So you bring all that extra functionality into the equation, so you kind of bring a full picture together.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So now we don't charge extra for this functionality. It's a checkbox for us. You can pick and choose who goes into what. But effectively, if you're under an E5 or an M5, there's this additional license that you have to add to your user, which is either called the Microsoft Phone System license, which almost everybody uses, or there's a common area phone license as well. By the way, they cost exactly the same. They're $8 per user per month, and then whatever your normal Microsoft discount is as a partner, however you buy. But effectively, you add this user onto the people that you want to turn this on for, and you don't add it on for the people that you don't. Of course, with the hybrid experience, those people can still talk to each other. So like you can pick and choose if you don't want everybody to be all in. But at the end of the day, this is the Microsoft program as it stands today. And so, like I said, we don't charge extra for this, like turn it on, turn it off. No big deal on our side, but Microsoft does charge that license.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, at the end of the day, what I wanted to come back and show you is, again, we have a lot of integrations, right? So imagine taking your data out of the phone system into Power BI or BrightGauge, for example, and creating your own reports, your own, business intelligence style stuff. And maybe the smaller customer doesn't need some of this, but this medium and the larger customers start to get past the, hey, let's just make the phone ring. Hey, I want to know if my people who are working remotely are working. How many calls are they in? How many meetings were they on? How many team sessions were they on? How many Zoom calls were they on? And then like aggregating that data together so that you can figure out, are you doing your work?
The analytics are so important, George.
I hate to have to even bring that up, but
Yep.
some people don't show up to work when they're working remotely.
And I never got into anything like this when I was with Ring Central, so I don't think that was an option. Analytics just weren't there.
It's funny going back to Ring Central land, right? And again, hate to pick on them, but they are the guy at the top of the food chain. And I didn't just make this page. You see, I refreshed it. In order to start talking about a lot of that stuff, look where you have to go. And look what the pricing is. Call us. We won't tell you what that is. So like, we're not hiding that stuff, right? Like we want to provide you the advanced level feature set. Some of this does come, in the higher tiers here at bvoip, but like, like things like supervisor, multi-queue wall boards so that you can manage multiple people across different call queues, across different office locations, for example, or a supervisor dashboard, right? Where you can actually go in and actually see who's doing what, how long have they been in their status, what do their stats look like, and do I actually want to override somebody to a different status, right? Like these are higher level functions that are considered contact center style integration. We have those, right? Not everybody's going to need them, but they're there. And when you get to, I don't even talk about enterprise customers, Scott. Let's say you're in the 50 to 100 user category, for example. Okay. This type stuff could help your end customer. I mean, technically it could be even smaller than that. But at the end of the day, like having this technology available at the MSP level can help you.
Absolutely.
So, again, a lot of different functionality, flexibility, and routes here. Here's one of the cool things, right? And like a lot of MSPs come to us for their own internal needs. And then like eventually a customer raises their hand and they say, hey, I need something. Do you have anything you recommend? And like all of a sudden, like that's when everybody scrambles, right? Because the answer is, well, you can go over here, you can go over there. I just, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, what do you use, right? So that's usually how we see these conversations coming up. Or it could be, like you said, Scott, a lot of people in the early days of VoIP just have had a bad experience because, number one complaint with VoIP is quality of service. I mean, it's the same across the board. There's a lot of moving parts to that, right? Especially the end users, connectivity and last mile internet provider, stuff like that. But number one, I think it's important to have the tools internally to run your business well, especially in the, kind of everybody's everywhere mode. And then two, you should have something that's part of your default offering, right? I mean, I appreciate the fact that not everybody's going to bundle this into their IT services bundle, their MSP bundle, but sure, you should have a default answer so that when that question comes up, you're not, handcuffed to a third-party vendor that you had no say in, and ultimately you're stuck now putting time out where you're not really getting compensated for that time. So control your costs. Set the price to make the money that you should. Oh, and by the way, here in bvoip land, how do you like this, Scott? 30-day opt-out. We don't have any long-term contracts. We don't want to lock you into an agreement. And if your end customer and you split up for whatever reason, and that happens, like, I don't want you coming back saying, well, I'm on the balance of this 3-year contract, but my end customer left me and now I'm stuck paying the bill. No, we don't think that's right. And so you can opt out of any service at any time.
That is so nice because that happens all the time with MSPs. It has happened to us, so it's not very fun at all.
So I mean, I'm sure during the pandemic, everybody experienced somewhere along the line either a customer shrunk, or maybe a customer left, or literally went out of business. I mean, that did happen.
It's happened. Yep.
And it's a shame because small businesses, like literally run, half the economy, right? Run, the foundation that everything runs on. Sure. But at the end of the day, like, we want to make sure that, again, as a channel company, not a direct company with a bolt-on program, like the business model should be designed to make it make sense for you, right? And so I think that's part of the challenge, right? And not every program is designed that way.
Well, you speak a lot of wisdom here, George. You've definitely given me something to think about as far as, reaching out to my existing client base that have those old phone systems, those old in-house PBX. I think I have one that I'm thinking of that Is Nortel, is that a brand?
Long gone, my friend. I
Long
mean,
gone. Okay.
like
It needs to be
Nortel's been out of
replaced.
business for a long time.
All right. Well, good. Then it needs to be replaced. That'll be the first people that I call up and see if we can get it started. Now, how does that process look, George? If I get my client interested, and I know just enough to get, to sell it. But what about the implementation? Does your team work with the MSP to get the client onboarded? How does that all look?
So first thing I can suggest to anyone is get a copy of your customer's bill, even if they're already on a VoIP service, right?
Hmm.
Or if they're on, traditional phone systems, right? There's a
Hmm.
combination of both. Just get a copy of the phone bill because like that's a starting position, right? What do
Okay.
they have? What are they being charged for? A lot of the times the customers who signed up for these services haven't looked in a long time, right? So, so that's always the first thing I would suggest. And as far as implementation and that kind of thing on our side, we're here to help you, right? Our process is to train you on how to, use the system and deploy the system so that, once you
Sure.
get comfortable, you're kind of a little bit more self-sufficient, but, we're always here to help. And we do have a professional services option. There are a lot of companies that just don't have time, Scott, right? Maybe they're busy and they just don't have the hours to deploy it. We do have an option where you can pay us to do the deployment for you.
Sweet.
Like it's a little bit more expensive, right? Because we're going to do the time. We're going to put the
Sure.
time in, but it's there and you're not stuck. I had a guy the other day, bvoip partners, like, hey, I got this large opportunity, 150 users, great op, but we just haven't had time to go and do it. And I'm like, okay, hey, let's get in a call and just like schedule this, right? And talk about how we can do this work for you and fast forward the program. So that's there.
So you can still make the commission and utilize your support staff to take care of it. Of course, there's an additional charge. You've got to pay your people as well. So I completely understand that, but that is something you can pass on to your end user and client because your client's not asking you to work for free.
No, I mean, and we see this
So,
all the time throughout the industry, Scott, right? Like Office 365, right? It's a big elephant in the room.
mhm.
Every time you have to migrate to Office 365, or even from, a lot of people do like, the GoDaddy or some other
Yeah,
version, and they got to move to the traditional 365, like there's tools out there, right? There's Migration Wiz and there's Skykick, but like there's still work involved to actually go through the process of
sure.
converting those customers. So, at the end of the day, like you can do a professional services program with your distributor or some third party to do effectively the project for you. You literally just pass that cost along, probably with a markup, right? So
Yep.
that's another option here, right? And then we don't see it every single time. A lot of people are like, hey, I got this. I can do this over and over again. And, like I just have to ask my customer, what their business hours are and make sure that they record their greetings for open and close, right? Kind of thing. And like
Well,
set the buttons right.
that's very appealing to me, George, because I feel like as an MSP, a small MSP business owner, that there's not enough hours in the day. And, I've never sold VoIP before. And it's just one of those things that if I could onboard that to you and just say, hey, I'm just going to pay George's team. They are professionals. They know their product. They will get the client onboarded. They will handle everything. I just need to sell the deal. If you make the deal happen and sell it, George will take care of everything else and his team. So that's beautiful. And that's kind of a game changer for me because honestly, the idea of learning something else, is just kind of, I don't know. It's almost, do you ever feel like we're just on brain overload sometimes with everything we have to
Well,
learn?
listen, Scott, I mean, like I said, it's not that hard. You've seen some of the portals
Sure.
here, drop downs and bubble buttons. But at the end of the day, like you're managing 30, 40, 50 different things, right?
Hmm.
That you have to touch, right? Is it a renewing a domain name? That's one. SSL certificates, that's another one. Backup, antivirus, password manager, right? Like there is a cumulative effect, right? But the reality is that for all of those other products you're trying to sell your customer, they're already paying for this, right? They're
Sure.
paying somebody for this service. So all you're trying to do is you're already there, you're already working with them, you're already that, advisor status with them. You just ask for a copy of their bill, see what they have. Maybe they're in a contract, maybe they're not, maybe they've been running on something for a long time. I mean, honestly, I can't tell you how many times somebody's used the phone bill as a wedge to go in and sell managed services because they're overpaying for their bill because they haven't looked at it in forever. And then all of a sudden you're just shifting their dollars that they're already spending to something else that you're offering.
You know, we have another sponsor, print partner, and they brought up a valid point about printers. And I would assume the same thing would hold true with Voip. You know, if you're not looking at what you're currently paying your current print vendor for, you know, things changed over COVID. You know, or do you still have this much need for that you're paying for? I assume the same thing goes with Voip. You know, is that need still there, and can that bill be reduced?
I mean, listen, what I'm talking about, sometimes people haven't looked at their internet, phone bill in years.
Right.
It's auto pay. They've been running on it. They don't ask or question it. Same with cell phone service and a lot of other services.
They're used to paying it.
Yeah, I think what COVID did is it forced a lot of people into realizing that the systems that they had weren't facilitating the remote, aspect. And then it forced the agenda, right? So, Teams and Zoom became super popular. No problem. There's nothing wrong with those platforms. They're not phone platforms. They're video platforms. They're conferencing platforms. So even though they have a phone component, they're not great. So we can merge those worlds together and ultimately give them, the best of both worlds. I have a simple video, conferencing solution built into the phone platform. But if you like Teams or you like Zoom, I'm not going to tell you to move off of those. Just incorporate those things.
Yeah, good deal. Well, George, what's the best way if we've got somebody watching this right now and they say, God, I really want to get started, but I don't know where to go. And how does somebody get started? How does an MSP get started if they're looking to sign up with bvoip or go down this road with you?
They can just send me a message right from within the ITBOG Facebook group. How about that? Right.
There you go.
bvoip.com, simple, bvoip.com, right? Just put in a request to contact somebody for a demo. Again, I'm in the group, I'm bouncing around. I try and help with questions as much as I can. So don't feel free to send me a direct message on the Facebook platform. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well, right? So if I'm not doing a video with Scott, I'm usually pretty responsive.
Well, you're a video king. I catch your videos as often as I can. You are always doing live streams. I think you got me beat several times over. So,
listen,
it's great content.
I tell everybody all the time, it's a hallway conversation, Scott. Like, stop, like if you can, think about, the last event. I know a lot of people haven't been to events, right? But like the best part of events, Scott, is like, and hopefully your event that'll eventually come to, to the equation. Is like it's the networking, right? It's the community. It's a conversation with the guy who's doing the same thing you're doing in the trench somewhere else. So I love that part. That is the best part. That's where you really, learn about what's working, what's not, how other people are succeeding or not. And so, I mean, it's a hallway conversation. And frankly, I think the whole thing has shifted to that, right? Like instead of presenting at someone, instead of, trying to pitch someone, just talk about what's happening, right? And if there's something you can help with, it'll come up in the conversation, but you got to be willing to have it. And so like, that's what this is for me, right? All the online stuff, like for me, it's fun, right? It's no different than the stuff I'd be talking about in person.
There you go. Well, George, what's the next event that bvoip is going to be at?
Wow. I mean, now, I'm going to send you the master event schedule.
Okay, do that
for the US. I promise I'm going to send that to you. It's like almost 180 events, by the way. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
And I surely don't have the time to be at 180 events. Thank God. But we are actually, we put a bunch of vendors together, and like we're going to be on the road in a little under 2 weeks.
Right.
We're going to be
Channel Strong,
right? Where we got on the bus, right? The tour bus, and basically have MSPs hosting us in their parking lots, and like we're effectively doing the tailgate networking thing outside, right? Grab a beer, grab a sandwich, have a conversation, no pressure, right? So Channel Strong's coming through Texas. It's the obvious cities, right? Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, right? So that's, you can go to channelstrongtour.com, us and a bunch of vendors that are in the group, right? Like PAX 8, for example, and a bunch of other really great vendors. Basically come together and like basically make it happen. And then MSPs literally, and listen, please don't have the castle mentality, right? Like there are a lot of IT service providers out there. I promise nobody's out there to steal your customers, plenty of business out there.
Right.
So like, but it's just no differently than you would go to a regional event or a conference. You stop out in the parking lot and you talk shop. I mean, it's really just like that. So, yeah, we're gonna be in Texas, and unfortunately, I won't be there. One of my team members will be there, Alec. But we love those. I love, and we started that during COVID, right? When outside was the only way to make it work.
That's right.
And we love the ability for somebody to just jump in the car and meet us somewhere in the backyard rather than having to go somewhere. Now, I say that, and hopefully, gas is still not at the highest level here. But I mean, that makes it even more pertinent to, if you haven't looked at a flight recently, Scott, go check it out. It's probably 2 times what you thought it was last time.
Wow. Well, let us know when you come through South Carolina with Channel Strong. We'll definitely.
We're coming.
Good deal. Good deal.
You got it.
Awesome.
All right, guy. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the IT Business Owners Group community. Hey, keep helping each other, right? Because that's how we all grow together.
Sounds good. George, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time today. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.